All right, well, welcome. We're so excited to do this. We certainly wish we were in person, but good morning. My name is Jordan Rose. I am the founder and president of Rose Law Group, and I'm really honored to host today Sam from HomeAid. Thank you for all the hard work that you do in our community. It's really an honor to be associated with you. It's obviously a dynamic environment. Things are changing. This is really timely, and we're going to have a very relevant conversation today on housing. And I'm super excited about the panel. You couldn't have a better panel than this. So we've got Elliott. Elliott's on the moon or wherever. I don't know what you got going there, Elliott, but undisclosed location.
It's cooler here.
It's cooler here, right? I bet it is. He's CEO of Elliott, Pollack and Company. We all know Elliott. We all trust Elliott. Elliott's the most highly respected economist in our state, and he's very sought after. Ali Wolf. Ali's a chief economist with Meyers Research. She's a really well-regarded industry expert. She manages and analyzes content for Zonda. She provides data analytics, runs special research projects, and she's frequently a national voice on real estate topics. You can read about Ali in all sorts of newspapers and whatever. And Brad Schoenberg, industry leader. Brad's the division president of Taylor Morrison here in Phoenix, and he's been there since 2015. Everyone knows Brad, everyone loves Brad and really respects Brad. Brad's got great decision-making skills. He's a great leader. Taylor Morrison is obviously a leading national home builder and was recognized in 2020 as America's most trusted home builder by Life Story Research. So thank you, Brad. Not only are you a trusted leader in real estate and division president for Taylor Morrison, but you're also the president of HomeAid Phoenix Board of Directors. And so originally we had planned to do this in person in April, and hopefully soon enough we'll all be together again. But today COVID finds us here. And we're really excited about being a part, I know I speak for Ali and Elliott, of this great group. So Brad, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about HomeAid, and that's the reason we're here. And then we're going to get into some great information about the market.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Jordan. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Elliott, for being here today. Really looking forward to it. I do think it's going to be a great discussion. As you stated, you know, what a difference a year makes. 12 months ago, we found ourselves with a group of us coming together, talking about home building and realizing that, you know, I've been in the market for 25 years. I've been blessed to always be here in Phoenix. Go Phoenix Suns. Great run they had. What a tremendous home building market. And I say that with a national perspective from a lot of reasons. Yes, the MSA is really strong on home building fundamentals and has been really since the late 70s, early 80s. But it's the trade partners that really make this business go here. And we have some of the best trade partners in the country here in Phoenix. And you know, that's driven us to be able to do one of the greatest things in life, and that is you know, the prestige and the honor that comes with building new homes for families and seeing those families grow and thrive, and you know, driving a community that all of us maybe have built in the past, and seeing families riding around in bicycles or fishing out of a lake, or you know, these outstanding master plans that have been developed in the market. And we had some discussion, and we realized that, you know, there is a problem in Phoenix, and it is worldwide, but really here in Phoenix it's been a growing problem, and that's homelessness. And it was amazing, the outpour of talent that came to the table for this discussion. We met here in the Scottsdale office of Taylor Morrison, and we had no less than 30 leaders in the market show up. And every single one of them said, yeah, we need to do something. We listened to the statistics. We thought about the strength that we bring in the market. And we all came together and said, let's form a relationship with HomeAid, which is a national organization that's been doing you know, good work in solving homelessness problems for the last 30 years. And we launched our chapter about a year ago now. And to your point, we had great plans and got a little bit of a setback in COVID, but we've still been marching on and doing a lot of great things and outreach in the community. And we've put together a short video today, I think, for everybody to see that'll give you a great sense and really, I think, tug at your heartstrings a little bit and give you a great sense of who we are and what we're trying to do.
My name is Chris Cady with the New Home Company here in Phoenix. Tonight,
approximately 7,400 people will experience homelessness here in the Valley. Approximately 40% of those will be families with children. This could be a result of domestic violence, job loss, depression, addiction, or any number of factors. Homelessness is rarely a path that someone chooses for themselves or their family. It knows no boundaries, and it can happen to any of us. That's where HomeAid comes in. HomeAid is a real opportunity for us as a home building industry to come together and make a significant impact in the communities in which we all live and work. We are home builders. We provide shelter. Working together and partnering with nonprofit providers across the Valley, we can renovate existing facilities or help start them up from the ground up. We are in a unique position where we can partner with these providers, and through your generosity and donated or discounted labor and materials, we can manage the physical improvements and they can focus their limited budgets on what they do best, providing career training, counseling, parenting skills, and other life-changing programs that will help these folks move from homelessness to a more stable environment. Home building has always been more than just sticks and bricks. This is where you can help provide a safe and dignified place that someone can call home, and through HomeAid and these partnerships, we can give people that chance to regroup and rebuild their lives. HomeAid Phoenix is a new chapter. We have our first project. It's time to get started.
Hi, I'm Julie Peterson with Sojourner Center. Sojourner Center has been serving victims of domestic violence for over 40 years in the Valley. And each year we serve up to 1,000 individuals through residential services, including crisis shelter and transitional housing. And of those individuals who seek our safety, up to 60% of them are children. Sojourner Center has always had a commitment to reducing as many barriers that victims may face when leaving an abusive relationship. And through our intake process, we learned from our victims that many of them had to leave their beloved pets behind. And in learning this information and looking at the research, we learned that up to 40% of domestic violence victims will not leave an abusive relationship if it means they have to leave their pets behind. And with this information, we knew we had to do something. And so in 2015, we launched our pet companion shelter. The focus of this program is to ensure that animals are able to come in safely into shelter so families are able to heal together. Since the beginning of this program, we've been able to serve over 200 pet families. One of those pet families is a participant who we will call Sarah. Sarah had been in an abusive relationship for over 17 years. And Sarah was a proud mother of 2 boys, and every single day she did everything she could to protect her boys and shield them from the abuse. Until one day when Sarah came home early from work, when she heard her son screaming and she walked in to find her abuser kicking her other son. And it was in that moment that Sarah knew she had to leave. And luckily for Sarah, she was able to safely leave with her children and her 2 dogs and come into Sojourner Center's care. Without programs like our pet companion shelter and our crisis shelter, it's very likely that Sarah would be living in her car today. Because of our partnership with HomeAid, we're going to be able to expand our services and serve more families seeking safety.
Hi, I'm Tina Johnston with Mary Kay Homes. For our first project, we knew that finding the right partner was really important. We were looking for an organization with a strong reputation and a history of success and impact in the community. And if we were lucky, we were hoping to find an organization that was dedicated to continuous improvement and innovating their service delivery. The more we learned about the work of the Sojourner Center and their plans to lean into their recent success of their pet companion model, the choice became clear. We're renovating 6 emergency shelter rooms on the Sojourner campus, providing a private restroom facility for each. We're also adding rear exits and designing new outdoor pet areas to each. The project also includes some much-needed repairs and upgrades to the subroof, fixing broken tiles and fixtures, and adding a fresh coat of paint. These improvements are specifically designed to help reduce the barriers that keep some families from readily accessing emergency shelter and services, and will help Sojourner serve more families in crisis. Without a doubt, these improvements are important. But we can't help but be humbled by the realization that this partnership will result in thousands of lives transformed for the women and children seeking safety from domestic violence. The work of HomeAid is only possible through the generous support of builders, trade partners, service providers, and individuals like you. Please join us in our fight against homelessness. To learn more and to donate, please visit us at homeaidphoenix.org.
Well, thank you, Brad, and thank you for that great video. Yes, I see it clapping. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, look, before we start, I just want to take a moment to say, look at your screen, look at the poll section, and take the poll. Okay, take the poll, because we're going to find out if you are smart or if you are not. But I want to suggest that everyone here today, remember, we would be in some sort of a ballroom, we'd be eating breakfast, and then somebody would ask you for money, right, to support this great group. And we're not in the ballroom, we're not eating breakfast, but I'm asking you to go to their website. It's homeaidphoenix.org. And I'd really like for you to show your appreciation for the great work that these guys are doing. And let's all get involved to any level that you possibly can. So, okay, let's talk about the poll. All right, the audience, please vote. And the question is, what is the level of demand? Is the home buying level of demand right now sustainable? And just so take a moment to vote. And we're gonna go and talk to the panel. We're gonna talk to Allie from a national perspective. Is the level of home buying right now sustainable? Elliott from a local perspective, and then Brad from an incredibly active builder. And we're going to really opine on if this audience is right or wrong. And Madeleine, who's working the poll, tells me that we can. This is not a hidden poll, so we can call you out if you are wrong. So, Allie, why don't we first? I don't know, Madeleine. As soon as you get the results, you can text me and I'll announce it. But Allie, why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on sustainability of this particular market, and tell us about the demand level nationally.
Yep, and I think the worst thing about today's time is that we actually won't be able to know who is right and who is wrong in the poll right now, because there are so many question marks. I do want to step back before I fully answer that question, and just reflecting on that video, I think HomeAid has become more valuable than ever. If you just look at the headlines from yesterday, there was one that stuck out to me as one of the most important and the biggest issues of today's time, which is the recession is over for the rich, but the working class is far from recovered. And we have to think about how, when we talk about a shape of a recovery, we're now following this, and this is not my original idea, this is someone else's, we're following this K-shaped recovery, where everyone who has money, they have a house, they continue to see home equity go up, they continue to see their stock portfolio go up, they're fine. And they're like, what recession and what kind of downturn? And there's no problem. And then if you look at the other side of it, we're just seeing a large part, and this goes back to the sustainability question. We have this large part of the economy that their wages are getting cut, their hours are getting cut, they're losing their job. Maybe they worked 2 part-time jobs and now they only have 1 part-time job. And that's pulling down the economy in a different direction than what we're seeing from the higher income. So I think when we talk about the sustainability of this recovery, we know right now, the short term, anyone who has any kind of hard asset or soft asset, they're having a great time. They're going to continue to fuel the demand right now, especially with rates as low as they are today. But we have a lot of risks in what we would call the mushy middle. I know that's very eloquent. The mushy middle risks. And then you look longer term, no doubt housing is going to be strong. So I think that's where, for me, the next 12 to 24 months look the most risky, not the near term and not the long term.
Okay, yeah, so breaking news, we've got some polling results, and 55% of people are optimistic that it will be for the foreseeable future, and 26% are saying it looks solid. Only 8% are really, really worried. Elliott, is our audience smart or stupid?
Well, they're reacting to news, just like home buyers are going to do. I just want to add to what Allie said. The economy is truly bifurcated. And for me, it's those people who maintain their jobs, those people who have been able to stay employed, essentially see money piling up. They basically can't take vacations. They can't go to Cousin Izzy's wedding. They can't go to the store, they can't go out to dinner, they can't go to ball games, they can't go to anything that involves crowds. So their money's piling up, and demand from most people is going to be quite strong. On the other hand, those people whose jobs were ended because of COVID, and they're basically service jobs. They're basically retail, they're basically entertainment, they're basically restaurants, bars, things like that. Those tend to be people who make less than the median income. And so the bulk of those people probably weren't in the housing market anyway, the single family housing market anyway, but some of them will be. My problem right now, and then I'm going to get into a list of what I think the positives are, because I think the list of positives is overwhelming. But the big negative is that we have probably the sleaziest Congress I've ever seen in my life, that they would go home without a follow-up to the CARES Act resolve, leaving millions of people without a source of income. That is just the sleaziest thing I've ever heard of. To throw in things like aid to states, to throw in more F-35s in what is all this pork that's going into what should be a simple question, is just the most obnoxious thing I've ever seen in my life. How you could vote for anybody who's in office or has been in office going forward is beyond me. My rant is done now, but essentially,
but Elliott, I've never heard you favor government assistance. So this is a new thing, and it's just
well.
yeah.
Look, this is not a typical recession. This isn't caused by normal economic factors. This is caused by a government shutdown fighting a disease. These people want to work. They could work. The economy was strong going into this. And essentially, the CARES Act did what they had to do. It got money. Some people fell through the cracks, but it got money to a lot of people who otherwise would have been in dire financial straits. And now they've just left all these people hanging. This is ridiculous. This is not a typical recession. These people are not losing their jobs because of the normal economic cycle. This is a government-induced recession because of their reaction to COVID. And I think the government has not only an obligation to help these people, but essentially, if they want any semblance of an economy coming out of this, it's something they have to do. And again, I've witnessed a lot of things, and I'm usually not political, but this is the most outrageous thing I've seen in 75 years of life. So that's just my comment.
And to Elliott's point, though, and going back to this idea of the short-term or medium-term risks in the mushy middle, when I was asked about, is there any chance that we're going to have a foreclosure crisis or an eviction crisis just 6 weeks ago, I was like, oh, there's no way that Congress is going to let that money go up. Like, we don't need to be worried about that. We're going to keep getting these top ups at least until we get the health crisis under control and people can get back to work. And then all of a sudden, to Elliott's point, that's not what we're seeing. And when you look at the risks and when you get an income cliff and you take that money away from people that need it to just live, to just buy groceries, that becomes a problem. And it's not, I think the thing that I have seen is a lot of my friends are like, well, no one I know is suffering. Okay, well, one of my good friends lost his job in March and he's putting his rent on his credit card. And he's just like, well, at some point I'll have to pay for that, but I don't know when that some point is. And so I think that becomes that medium-term risk that we were talking about. But for now, again, to Elliott's point, we're not seeing the job losses fully concentrated in the income range where people that would buy homes are right now. And that's why we're continuing to see so much strength in housing, even through August, a time that's normally slower for the housing market.
I agree. All right, let me just go through some background because you tend to lose perspective. First of all, the underlying demographics for both single-family housing and rentals are as good as I've ever seen them in my years as a practicing economist, and that's due to the aging of millennials and the postponement of having kids, and now getting to the age where that's going to happen less and less. The uneven recession, and that is that the people, at least in the first round, who were laid off, essentially weren't in the single-family housing market. The ripple effects of that are going to affect people who are in the housing market. Record low interest rates. The reason that Phoenix is so affordable isn't because the housing prices are so great. It's because interest rates are under 3%. And so that's good news. Inventory is incredibly low. The 2000s were years of building excess. The 2010s, not only did we go through all that excess, but we ended up with a shortage of housing and a shortage of people to build housing. I don't know how long it's going to take to get things back to normal, but it's going to be a while. You're getting job relocations, which is going to help Phoenix. Phoenix in 88 through 92 shot itself in the foot with ASCAM, with Charlie Keating, with the banking system in trouble, with the loss of the Martin Luther King holiday, or the Super Bowl because of the delay in passing a Martin Luther King holiday. It was a mess. In 2007, the geniuses in the legislature passed 1070, which turned out to be a boondoggle for us. And certainly we were ground zero for the housing the housing market collapse. This time around, we've done most things right. So I think that we are going to come out of this like a rocket ship. And a lot of people who want to get out of Dodge, get out of Los Angeles, get out of Chicago, get out of New York, get out of Atlanta, they're going to end up in the Southwest. They're going to end up in Phoenix. They're going to end up in Denver. They're going to end up in Utah. If they can end up in Las Vegas. And that's good news. You've got massive fiscal and monetary support. Well, you had fiscal support up till recently, but monetary support. You basically got a generation of kids who now want to get out of multi-story apartments. They want room for their kid or their dog. I think they're going to be in the build to rent space. We can talk about that. And essentially, the combination of those things makes me very optimistic for the long term.
So you say we're gonna go up like a rocket ship. When is that, Elliott?
Well, you tell me when they get the vaccine. Okay.
The vaccine.
I think it's continuing, but it's very difficult for people to move. Although apparently in June, 80,000 people moved out of New York City, and they got to be moving somewhere. So
Jordan,
you know.
Jordan, I would argue we already are in the rocket ship. When I talk to some of the builders, at least right now, some of them have reported 70% year-over-year increases in sales, and that's above any year since 2007. I've had some builders tell me that they've been in the business for 30 years and they've had the best June and July ever, including the mid-2000s housing boom. So when you think about the demographics that Elliott highlighted, you know that 40% of all shoppers going into this was millennials, continues to be millennials. They're 28, 29, 30 years old. When do people get married? When do people have kids? 28, 29, 30 years old. Plus, we can't get married now because you can't have 100 people gather, and maybe you decide to do a courthouse wedding, and maybe you'll do a party next year. But in the meantime, you have maybe $30,000, $40,000 that you've set aside for that all of a sudden can go towards a down payment. And so we've seen that as a short-term boom for the millennials. We've seen Gen Xers who have kids that are like, my house is not equipped for having at-home schooling. I can't have 2 people living in this house, plus our kids having to do their work here, plus our dog, plus we don't have to commute anymore. We're seeing that create some compromises in terms of location to gather space. And then I think boomers are the ones that are still, we're seeing an increased activity in boomers, but if they're boomers that are moving and they need to get on a plane to move, they've stalled some of their purchases. But then that's something that we do see long down the road when we see the vaccine. Now that pent-up demand on the boomer side starts to unleash as well.
Thank you, guys. Well, Brad, you're living this with Taylor Morrison. Tell us, is it sustainable? What are you seeing in terms of home buyers right now? Do you believe it's sustainable? Just your reaction to Ali and Elliott's positive thinking there.
Sure. Yeah, it's great to hear the positive thinking out of the economists, right? The fundamentals are on the front line, and I agree with what Ali and Elliott are describing is exactly what we're seeing on the front line. From a home building perspective, the fundamentals, when you look at population growth, we always look at that. We look at the demographics. We look at supply and demand, and then we look at the interest rates. And I would say, and I think Andy Warren brought this up on one of your earlier calls, Jordan, and I think he said it really well, and that is we've experienced a full cycle in about 6-7 months, right? We were in the first quarter and it was rock and roll. The only thing we were worried about is what's going to happen with interest rates, but supply and demand was very favorable for new homes. And then we got to late March and the COVID pandemic started to get through the economy. And we basically didn't know what was going to happen. And most of us actually started to right size our businesses with people. And then shortly thereafter, we come to Elliott's words, we started to rocket ship back up in really early May to the levels that Allie's talking about that are historical sales year-over-year growth numbers that almost every builder has seen. And when you, it's very different than the robust growth that we saw in the boom of 2005 from a mortgage standpoint. People are able to go out now, to Allie's point, they have money in pocket. They've got $20,000, $40,000, whatever that number is to put down. And they're getting an interest rate, a fixed interest rate for a 30-year loan, in some cases under 3%, some cases 2.5%. Some people are doing 15-year mortgages. I mean, that is just fueling this, you know, it sets us up for future growth, is why I think the term rocket ship happens. Nobody's putting themselves behind the 8 ball with what they're doing by getting into home ownership. The challenges are still real from our standpoint on the new homes side of taking the order and being able to deliver it. Our cycle times are being extended. We still have labor capacity challenges. And we have to be very, very smart about those orders that we're taking on the front end, the expectations we're setting for that consumer. But we're also pivoting to the types of houses that we're designing. We've always had offices and spaces in our homes where people could do work from home. We're really starting to tout that and clean it up and maybe have more separate areas where, you know, the dad can stay at home and work in his office, but the kids can do school from home. And I'm living that myself with a junior in high school, going back to do school online. So there's a lot of robust comments about the consumer out there. And I think the other point is, yeah, the millennials are here and they're very, very active. They're very well educated and they know what they want. But we see every demographic in the Phoenix market today. We have housing that's in the $200,000 and we have housing that's in the $900,000. And every single one of those is clicking on strong cylinders and growth, including the active adult. I would tell you that the boomers have come back into the market. We've seen some good pace. The seasonality of this market is kind of gone from that consumer. So we feel really, really bullish on where we're at, but we want to be very, very smart about how we're going about it and not over-promising and under-delivering, because it is a big, big task that's in front of us.
Are your times slow, because even slower now because of COVID? Is the construction taking longer because of that? Or I know you were having.
That's a great question, Jordan. I think, you know, just to use Taylor Morrison as an example, we used to get 3 house turns a year, and now we're getting maybe 2. And that was prior to COVID coming out, just the cycle times that it's taking, the different methodologies of building. But COVID has had an impact, not only internally to our teams, where we've had to try and take measures to keep everybody safe, right? Happy, safe, working from home. Maybe we're not as well connected. And then we've had the trade partners in the field where, you know, maybe a tradesman gets sick, comes down with COVID. And then what's the impact to that crew? We have to quarantine and make sure all of them are going to be safe. So there is some disruption in the field. And we've seen some improvement, quite honestly, over the last 30 to 60 days with some of the initiatives that have been put in place by the governor. And hopefully we have flattened that curve and there's a lot more positiveness coming out of it.
Hey, Brad, can I ask a quick question about lumber? Because that's really become the story of the day. In case you guys don't know, lumber prices are up 90% since mid-April of this year. And I know that you guys use future contracts and maybe it's not that big of an issue, but I'm wondering, when do those contracts run out? How does that play into the price of a home? What does that mean for affordability? How concerned or not are you about lumber?
Yeah, great question, Allie. Probably the biggest headwind, and lumber's just the first of the commodities that will probably see some increases. And if you were to pull out a random links chart on lumber today, as most builders do, it's pegged straight up. And to your point, it's been a 90% growth. And it's very concerning because it's, you know, we've got to buy that material. We've got to allow our trade partners to put it in play and build the houses. And then we've got to adjust to keep our profit margins with obviously house cost increases. We have to put sales price increases to maintain a profitable business. And so every builder out there today is strategizing about that. We typically would lock our commodities down on a 90-day, 13-week trailing average. I think that's kind of standard for most builders, but we're having to sit down with our tradesmen today and talk about that supply chain and maybe look at doing that a little differently since it is so robust right now, maybe going to a 30-day look, all with the mind of the consumer, right? We don't want to have happen what happened in I'll use the head fake of 2012, 2013, where we started to come out of the cycle and we got really aggressive with our pricing. And investors were buying up all the resale and new home pricing shot up, and we kind of stalled the market. So I think that's fresh in all of our minds over the last 7 years or so, that we don't want to do that again. So we want to be very strategic in how we do it, but we still want to maintain a profitable business.
And I think that has to be fresh and top of mind, because I think what I have a new renewed fear about is affordability for different reasons. Obviously what we're seeing with lumber, but I know that rates are low right now. But in Phoenix, for example, this time last year, 45% of projects were raising prices. Today it's nearly 80%. And right now, that's fine. You can keep raising prices. You have to adjust it for costs. You have to adjust it to slow demand, because demand has been so feverish. You don't want to sell 10, you maybe want to slow that down. But I wonder, at some point, do you shoot yourself in the foot? Because you have to. I think that's the right thing to do right now. But how does that, even though Phoenix is relatively affordable compared to other areas, when does that, or does it, start to slow the market again?
Yeah, I think it's, to your point, it's an interest rate calculation, right? If the interest rates were to move 50 bips, 100 bips, you're going to take a certain demographic that's not going to be affordable in that market. And we are going to have to keep adjusting price. What you see, though, is the supply and demand. There is no existing resale inventory out there. So our competition, our market share as new homes is growing. Where we were below 15%, we're probably on the verge of 20% in the Phoenix market today being new home inventory. On the MLS, at a point in time, if you pull it in the middle of the month after everything's kind of been signed up and transacted, there's probably less than 7,000 units of supply in MLS today in the middle of the month. So we're watching all of those dynamics. We're being very mindful of what our consumer can afford. We're being mindful of how do we value engineer our products to get the waste out of the system so that we can maintain that affordability. But it is definitely the headwind that faces us all if interest rates were to tick up and our costs and commodities continue to climb. I'm hopeful that this is a seasonality issue. You know, typically for a lumber, we see the seasonality change as the winter time rolls in and less production happens in the East Coast or in some of the Midwest states. You know, here in the West Coast, we're lucky enough to be able to build year round and continue cycle times. And so typically you'll see that lumber adjust back down in the other direction as we get into the fourth quarter, first quarter of the year. So we're resting and trying to rely on the history that we have in the markets, all of our builders.
Yeah, I want to stress what Ali said. Phoenix is affordable because of interest rates, not because of housing prices. So if we get to a point where interest rates move up again, you can't see it now, it's going to happen. Housing's got some real issues, and the issues really are going to have to be addressed. It takes so long to implement change in terms of the way things are done, in terms of densities, in terms of products that you put in the house, that they better be thinking about it now, because if you're not, you're going to wake up one day and interest rates are going to be back to, mortgage rates will be back to 5%, and you're basically going to sit there wondering what the hell happened. So this is not a problem that's going to go away. It's being masked. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but there's got to be an answer out there. Otherwise, the whole country becomes California in terms of housing prices. And it's a real problem down the road. It's not a now problem, it's a down the road problem.
Maybe the easiest panel to moderate ever. You just keep talking, I like it. Hey, Ali, you have a national perspective, and I'm wondering if you could talk to us about what Phoenix looks like compared to some of the other hot markets like in Florida, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, all those kinds of whatever, and just give us kind of your perspective.
Yep, sure. And right before I jump into that, I just want to make one quick note about the resale inventory, because that's been one thing that I have been guilty of too, of saying like resale inventory is so low and it's so great. And I think the unintended, so it's been great for us in the home building industry because we've been able to get that market share capture. But the unintended consequence is that when you get supply and demand so out of whack, it goes back to that affordability problem. And so that's the one thing that Phoenix is completely in line with almost every other market in the country where that problem is persisting. I think Phoenix was one of the quicker markets, at least in my perspective, to come back compared to some of the other markets. It wasn't one that I would say everyone called doomsday to. I think everyone had looked at Las Vegas and looked at Orlando and looked at LA and had said these markets are going to get absolutely hammered, and they actually haven't. We just saw Las Vegas is almost back to actually above levels that it was this time last year. Las Vegas, where you have an unemployment rate in the double digits, high double digits. So what we've seen, we've created an implied unemployment rate for Phoenix. And if you guys remember, the national unemployment rate is 10.2%. In Phoenix, it's just under 9% for July. Those aren't actual numbers. We had to create a calculation for it. So there are some markets like Salt Lake City where the unemployment rate is about 5%. So if you look at Salt Lake City versus Phoenix, sure, it looks like there's a little bit more pain, but then you look at Detroit, LA, New York, all those other markets where your unemployment rate is now at 15 to 16%. So I think when you look at the number, it makes sense, especially when you look at then how the job losses are concentrated. Think back to the K. A lot of the jobs will be concentrated more in that lower income. Another reason why we continue to see all the positive momentum in the housing market.
Yeah, you never hear about this, but if you take a look at employment for basically so far this year, Phoenix is the best performing major market in the country in terms of jobs. And that's not because we've gained jobs, it's because we've lost less than everybody else. And so we're still doing pretty well. And like I said, ultimately we will do very well coming out of this, but it's going to take years to ramp up supply again.
Talk to us about the effects of COVID, civil unrest, all of the sort of rancor that we have in our country. How is that affecting both Phoenix and other markets? Will it affect our situation here with new home buyers?
Well, I think that if even in a place that's fairly nice to live, like Seattle or Portland, at some point people say, I'm getting out of here. I've had enough of this. Yeah, we had problems in Scottsdale, but it turned out to be a one-night event because somebody finally decided that the police should do their job. But in effect, I think that will cause more people to move, and those cities that are on people's list includes Phoenix.
And here, this is where, and I think the point is that we don't always have to agree on things. And so what I want to say is I would slightly agree with people wanting to leave Seattle and Phoenix because of that. I think it then gets broken out into political party. And the reason I am disagreeing is because I have a friend that lived in California that directly said, I am so energized by what's going on in Portland. I want to be part of the action. I want to be part of a city and a culture that cares about issues in the world, and I want to go join it. In the same conversation, someone said, well, you said that, but one of my friends, I just went out to lunch with her, and she said, I would never move to Portland because of what they're doing. So it goes back to politics. It goes back to what you care about. I think you may have some people going out, and think you may have some people going in. So it may be more of a net issue versus a mass exodus.
Elliott, you're not moving to Portland.
Not at any time soon.
Not so much. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to talk, Brad, you said that all of your markets, all of your different product types are just up. $200,000 home, $900,000 home, up. Well, you have a genius, really a brilliant partnership with Christopher Todd Communities, where you're doing single family for rent. And I know a lot of the builders who are on the Zoom today are also doing that. They're following in your footsteps, or they're trying to pioneer a different approach. How does that look? And what are your, and I want to hear from the whole panel on the prospects of the single family for rent and the effect of COVID on that.
Yeah, for us here in Phoenix, so to your point, it's been 1 year and we formed an exclusive relationship with Christopher Todd Homes in the market. And Todd Wood has built a tremendous model of taking a 10, 13 acre site and putting in 150, 175 single detached units of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units with amenities included, fitness centers and aquatic center. And it's been a home run. And where we come into play with this exclusive relationship is that we're the builder. We can bring the knowledge of how to get the tradesmen there. We can bring the knowledge of how to buy the land. We can bring the knowledge of how to plan and get it through the entitlement process. And so we're in early days. We have 2 projects with dirt being moved today, one at Elliott University and the other out at 95th Avenue in McDowell. And really, really excited about that. We think it's another great part of our business. And the success in the market with the rental rates and the rental occupancies, especially with COVID going on. People really are flocking to this type of operation and this type of living environment where we're not living on top of each other. We've got some separation. I'm behind a gate. I feel safe and secure. And the demographics of the consumer are pretty spread as well. You'd have a lot of millennials in there. You'd have a lot of baby boomers in there. So we're really bullish on that as well, and like where it's going.
What, Allie or Elliott, do you want to opine on that particular product type and maybe also on just apartments in general and the prospects?
Well, as a product type, and I'll be interested to hear what Allie has to say, but it's essentially a third product type that is real as apartments or traditional single-family housing. You got to understand that there's more single-family rentals in Phoenix. And I'm talking about traditional single-family homes being rented than there are buildings of 50 or more. Okay, it's a huge market. In 2000, it was about 11% of the market. It got to about 22% of the market. Basically, 1 out of every 5 single-family homes in Phoenix was rented. It's a real market, and it serves a purpose for those people who can't or won't be in a single-family home, but they have 2 kids and a dog, and they need something that is going to be more single-family-ish. They need the amenities, they need the security, they need the small yard, and I think it's a terrific market. It's going to take away, I think, from apartments given COVID more than it will single-family, but it also gives people an alternative to single-family rentals. I think it's, we danced around the edges of this for years, and it's now turned into a market segment that's real and here to stay.
Yep, and I think Elliott said it perfectly. I like the phrase serves a purpose, because I think that's exactly what they do, especially in the COVID times where people don't want to be touching the elevator buttons or being nervous about who else they're being around. You're able to get the space, you're able to get the yard, you're able to get the office that maybe you needed and you wouldn't otherwise get if you were in a 600 square foot, just normal institutional multifamily space. So I think it's a great place. Usually, at least from what I've heard from other build to rent companies, it's a very high income that ends up there. I know Brad said it's all over the board for them. I've just heard, and maybe it's just a talking point, I've always heard our people earn 6 figures and they're choosing this. They're choosing the flexibility. They're choosing the lifestyle. And especially for Phoenix, when you have people moving in, maybe they want to try out submarkets or pockets of the city before they commit to buying. That's a good way to try it before you buy it. When you asked about just general multifamily space, I feel like I'm a broken record, but think back to the K-shape that I'm talking about. Class A, I had a call with the 3rd largest apartment developer in the country yesterday. Class A, still doing fine. They said they're not feeling any strain. They're still seeing people paying their rent. They're not seeing the people leaving and saying all of a sudden, I don't want to live in the city or I don't want to live in a multifamily place. But on the other side, you hear about the lower classes, which are obviously going to cater to some of the lower income individuals. You're seeing a little bit of more strain on rent collection there, and how financially stable are those tenants?
Thank you. We're gonna have one last question. I'm gonna tell you what the question is, and then I want to post COVID-19. What will be different? That's what I want to know. What will be different, right? And I wanted to say though, as you're thinking about your answer, is, I mean, how could we get can you imagine in March that we would be sitting here talking to a group of home builders and everyone would generally be really happy? Is that crazy? I love that. That's amazing, right? I mean, what group of people, right? So, okay, post-COVID, what's going to be different about home building? Brad.
It's about people. It's about safety and wellness of our people, first and foremost, right? Elliott talked about the vaccine. We'll see how that plays out and what energy that gives back to all parts of the world, quite honestly, and confidence that it brings. But it's being aware and having that human compassion for how things are different, how people are living, how people are raising families. And that translates for home building out into the field with our customer as well as our trade partners. We just have to have a sense of awareness. And we're strong, we'll survive, we'll figure out how to navigate through this, but it's first and foremost is about keeping people safe and healthy.
Allie, post-COVID differences.
So the 3 things that came to my mind is, one, I still think there's always been this focus on I want a healthy home, or I want to do well for the environment, or I want to do well for myself. And there's always been this resistance of I also don't want to pay for it because we talked about affordability earlier today. For some of the first movers, they're able to buy in such bulk that they can provide a new home that's healthy, that then all of a sudden appeases anyone's fear, whether it's a COVID fear or just now I'm more aware of my surroundings. I think second to that, I had a big builder say to me yesterday, we've always knew that people researched before they came to a new home community, but they said there's now this new second phase, which is people research, then they want to do the virtual walkthrough, then they want to come in. And so they want to see it before, but I don't think this idea that model homes will go away and we've all of a sudden replaced that because we can do these really good virtual tours. I still get sick on every single one I'm on. So I still want to go to the model home and still see that. And I think third is this shift to the online retail. I think we'll still go to malls, we'll still go to shops, but I think builders for so long have said, how do we actually create something where people aren't afraid that their stuff's going to get stolen? And I know there's been little lock boxes and little things like that, but I still think thinking forward of what would help solve that problem is another thing that won't go away.
And then there's the obvious thing, and that is homes have to be designed a little differently. This happens over time. Right now, my guess is before COVID, about 5% of people work from home. I think that number is going to 15% based on what I've read. That seems reasonable. And so home builders are going to have to design a quiet space where somebody can have an office into the home. And it's going to have to be more wide open than it was, but it's going to have an office in anticipation of somebody working home, even if it's one day a week, needing that space. Hopefully, you don't have to build in spaces for kids to distance learn, but who knows?
All right. Well, we can't thank you all enough. Elliott, Allie, Brad, pretty amazing. Amazing panel, great information. I also wanted to thank our impact sponsors, our friends at Shea Homes, Brickfield Residential, City Property, Outhouse, AAM, and VIP Mortgage. Thank you all for participating today, and go to homeaidphoenix.org. Let's support this great cause, and have a wonderful day. If you're here in Phoenix, let's go outside and enjoy that heat. All right, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
Take care.